It's officially the end of week 2 of the NFL season, and 9 teams have a goose egg in the win column. So who's dead in the water and who can turn it around? Welcome to the Locked On NFL podcast.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, football fans? Welcome to the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much to those of you who listen to this show every single day. Our hashtag everydayers that love all of the different hosts that we get in here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Today is Tuesday, which means you got me, Luke Braun, at Luke Braun NFL, here with Lorin Cox at Cox Sports 1. I cover the Vikings. He covers the Bears. Both of our teams are 0-2, and we are going to talk about just how dead they are. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Lorin, we are a couple of sad football fans who have not yet experienced a win here in the 2023 season. But I wanted to play a little bit of a game with you. We've got 9 teams that are 0-2. And last year, Ross and I, we ripped teams. We poured one out for the dead teams in the water. We said, these teams are done. They're not going to make the playoffs. I think the first one we did was the Bengals after they experienced a bad loss on prime time. So that did not work out. So let's get even more reckless with it and start doing this in week 2. Some 0-2 teams, famously like 10% of teams that go 0-2 actually make the playoffs. You kind of get one every other year, basically. Might be more with the new season, but those 9 teams that I mentioned, the New England Patriots, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Denver Broncos, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Houston Texans, the Arizona Cardinals, my Vikings, your Bears, and the Carolina Panthers. Of those teams, which one, I'll let you go first and have first right of refusal on setting your own son on fire. Which one of those would you, do you want to count out? Who are you ripping?
Well, I think you could count out about half of them, right? I mean, there's a handful of these teams that just like, we know who the really bad teams are in the NFL.
We know that just aren't going to do this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a few of those 0-2 teams I'm sure we'll get to that it feels like their record doesn't quite reflect who they are. So, I mean, of course, I think I have to say my Chicago Bears are one of these 0-2 teams that's not just going to all of a sudden become a playoff team all of a sudden. They're going to win.
I was going to let you have the shotgun so you can put your own dog down. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I should have said it was the Vikings to rip your team, and then you could say the Bears and rip my team. But
yeah, that would have been spicier.
Yeah, but no, I mean, the Bears will win some games at some point, and the sky won't be falling entirely. But this is a team that's not making the kind of progress they needed to in year 2 under Matt Eberflus and offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. Justin Fields not developing and taking the steps forward that the team wanted to see in year 3. A lot of the additions they made this year to try and get things, better around Justin Fields on both sides of the ball have not panned out the way that they expected. And that's kind of where the hype and the expectation came for the Bears being, people threw them out as like a sneaky team that maybe could go on a run, or Justin Fields is a dark horse MVP candidate. Like that was all predicated on, this signing will be good. This trade will be good. These draft picks will be good. The system will be good. The coaches will be good. And the quarterback will be better. And therefore everything will be fine. And we've had maybe one of those things happen across the board there, if that at this point.
Yeah. And with the Bears, my question is, because I mean, going into this season, I think you and I talked about this earlier on Locked On NFL about like, what's the expectation here? And it was never that they were going to suddenly be this like Super Bowl contender. This was a long-term build that was always going to kind of be still something of a work in progress. But my question is, are we even there? Or even with the expectation of just a work in progress, are we going, maybe this whole build isn't working out at all and we need to try something new, like on the whole? Or is this a moment where you have to tell Bears fans, just be patient, let this thing come together and it's not finished yet?
No, I think there was so much of that, like that pivotal timeline here where, the Bears had the number 1 overall pick and could have got a replacement quarterback and said, no, we're going to go all in on Fields this season and at the end of his contract, I guess late in his rookie contract, see how this year's goes, and then ultimately decide on the future there. And it's like, okay, it's year 2 in the offense. Like this was supposed to be the time when certainly, like you said, not Super Bowl contender, but like a lot of the excuses and a lot of the sort of
like, got DJ Moore now. You've got a top 10 pick at tackle now. Yeah.
Yeah. And certainly like there's something to be said about the things that they thought would solve those excuses, not solving those excuses, and that falling on, the general manager and the coaching staff to some degree, but also like Fields is not taking the steps separately from everything else around him. You can point to like even just individually him in the pocket, decision making, he's with ball accuracy and stuff that are just not working either. And you get to this timeline again where next year Bears have 2 first-round picks again and a bunch of cap space, and can they make the same decision again of trade down, not draft a quarterback? I think you're looking at kind of a all or nothing decision with him at least, and then you evaluate the coaching staff and the GM separately from that.
Yeah, and you have to do like you have to make the 5th-year option decision with Justin Fields now. And that's going to mean, how long-term is this guy? Or are we saying, you know what? We traded up. We got a first-round pick quarterback. It didn't work out. Let's not dwell on it. Let's go get our next guy. Shoot, I didn't even do that if I'm Ryan Poles, right? That was the last guy. Mm-hmm. Let me go get my own guy. Or do we say, this is all Luke Getsy's fault? Let's keep rolling with Fields.
The problem is it feels like it's both right now. And so how do you solve, how do you evaluate one when you feel like the other one's not doing a great job either? Like you can kind of look at both separately and say, yeah, that's not great. And, oh, that's not great either. So you can them both and start totally fresh. And then the head coach picked the offensive coordinator, and his defense isn't very good either. So you can everybody. And then the GM picked all them. So yeah, it's like, how far do you keep going up the chain?
Yeah, and for me, I mean, the most fun team to rip would be the Bears. I'm not going to do the Vikings. I can't bring myself to do it yet. And there's actually we'll talk about. There's some reasons to maybe think that it's not quite over for them. But there's so many easy answers to this in the Panthers and the Texans and the Cardinals that are other teams that went in going, we're not serious. Like we're going for a quarterback, or we just drafted a quarterback. Like if you're a Texans fan, you just hope CJ Stroud looks all right, And same thing with like the Panthers. Cardinals are just like angling for Caleb Williams. Like we get it. And I'm going to be a little bit less lame. And I'm going to say the New England Patriots at 0-2. I'm sticking a fork in them. They're done. They look like they are just too mid to pull out of any sort of hole. If they started 2-3-0, and they like gritted out a couple of wins, I could see them, if they get to a point where, hey, just go 500 from here on out and we make the playoffs, like I could see them accomplishing that. But for a team that's kind of got to like run a whole bunch of these together, I don't know. It's hard to count out Bill Belichick, but it's not hard to count out Mac Jones. And the offense that they have put together just doesn't have a lot of juice. I know that's not like the most helpful analysis, but I'm sorry, Devontae Parker isn't doing it for me. And when you are that sort of death by 1,000 cuts, be this methodical, march down the field kind of team, it still kind of feels like they want to be the Tom Brady thing where we're just efficient and we're this kind of cold, well-oiled machine. And when you do that, you have to play completely mistake-free. And the heyday of the Patriots, that was their superpower, was that they never screwed up ever. And you never got any opportunities. This is not that team anymore. It's younger. It's more experienced. It doesn't have the same leadership. Doesn't have Tom Brady. Mistakes are going to be made. And when you don't have the explosiveness, you can't overcome mistakes. And I don't see the Patriots becoming a perfect, well-oiled machine like it's 2014 again anytime soon. I think that the Patriots are done for. And I think we start kind of asking about how many years Bill Belichick has left as a coach. I mean, he'll be allowed to retire whenever he wants to, right? But he's getting up there, and how long does he have, 8 and 9 seasons in him, or potentially worse?
Yeah, it feels to me like another example of like general manager Bill Belichick getting in the way of head coach Bill Belichick, where like
ain't that the story, huh?
Coach, but like that offense feels like kind of an island of misfit toys and rejects. It's like, oh, the wide receiver the Dolphins didn't want, plus the tight end the Dolphins didn't want, Mike Gesicki.
Right, Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, the wide receiver that the Chiefs and Steelers didn't want all that much, and Juju Smith-Schuster at that point. Mm-hmm. The receiver that the 49ers didn't want all that much, and Kendrick Bourne. Like, it was kind of like, we'll take you all in, but like none of those guys are really that good. Even Zeke Elliott, the running back the Cowboys didn't want. It's a bunch of guys that are just
exactly
handed in New England, but that doesn't make them good. It's a lot of rejects there, and Yeah, that one's tough. The personnel can only go take you so far with a quarterback like Mac Jones, too, that isn't going to necessarily elevate the level of play of everybody around him.
So last year, the Cincinnati Bengals started 0-2, and everybody had this same conversation about them. Are they done? Can they turn it around? And lo and behold, they make it all the way to the AFC Championship game. So it can be done. We can be proven wrong. We are just podcasters. So let's talk about maybe who can do that, which will come next. And then we'll also do Yike and Like of the week.
This episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by our friends at Jase Medical, the makers of the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. It's a great way to stay prepared and always have medication nearby in case of an emergency. I recently just got my own Jase Case, and it's great. It comes with all the different kind of antibiotics that you need for any kind of situation. You know, there's been supply chain issues trying to get the antibiotics for any kind of infection, and sometimes you haven't been able to get them as quick as you want from the doctor, even when you're sick. The nice thing about the Jase Case, I've got them now. So if I'm sick in the future, I don't even have to go into the clinic to wait to meet with the doctor, to then get a prescription, to then go pick it up while I'm feeling like crap the whole time. My Jase Case has them ready for me right now. It's super easy. You get ongoing care from their Jase Case physicians on any treatment-related questions. You just fill out an online form, and in some cases, you jump on a quick call with a board-certified physician, and boom, you can get your Jase Case headed right to you. And when you order with Jase Medical, you can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical. Plus, you'll get an additional $20 off if you use our promo code Locked On at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code Locked On. This episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And now is a great time to get started on FanDuel if you've never tried it before, because new customers, all you got to do is bet $5 and you're going to get $200 given to you in bonus bets, guaranteed. Literally, you just place a $5 bet on anything, a spread, money line, a game pick straight up, whatever you want. A prop bet for coach of the year, for first coach to get fired, maybe one of these 0-2 teams, maybe Matt Eberflus, Chicago Bears, Brandon Staley, Los Angeles Chargers, a few different options there. $5 is all you need to put down, and then FanDuel is going to literally give you $200, win or lose. And so why wait? If you're thinking about trying FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Thank you all again so much to our hashtag everydayers who listen to Locked On NFL every single day. You can, of course, find the Locked On NFL podcast Monday through Friday with a different cast of characters hosting each day. So there's always going to be something for you. Let's get a little more positive, Lorin. Let's get some sunshine and puppies and talk about some of these teams that maybe we don't need to count out right away. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be a homer, but I'm going to let you go first if you want to pick somebody else.
I'm going to play a dangerous game that historically hasn't panned out super well, but I still believe in the Los Angeles Chargers. You know, fool me once.
Oh my God.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me every single season, shame on you. But like, listen, when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, he finds ways to make it happen. I know they play your Vikings.
Yeah, they got to have more in them, right? Well, and it's been like 2 tough games, like 2 tough close ones. I get it. Yeah.
Like they played a really good Miami Dolphins team in week 1. And then, you know, certainly the Titans game was a lot more concerning, but I see, you know, the Vikings on the schedule, and then the Raiders should be a fairly easy matchup. And then they got a bye week in week 5. And it feels like that's the time where even if they're, you know, 2-3 at that point, take a deep breath, reevaluate things, relax. Like I do believe in Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. I think they are making progress offensively. I still feel like Brandon Staley can be a good defensive coordinator, but there are plenty of teams that if he gets fired by the Chargers, would love to have him back as their D coordinator. Maybe he's not a great head coach in the head coaching role, but like if he knows defense and has been involved in very successful defenses, and they do have some talent on that side of the ball, like they should be able to get more out of those guys. And to me, like it's not like the Bears or something where there was expectations that maybe weren't really all that warranted because, it turns out the talent actually wasn't that good. Like, you look at the Chargers team, that is a better football team than what we've seen on paper. And I know there's Chargers bad luck. I'm certainly not thinking that they're going to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but the Chargers, as much as they have the bad luck, they always have the bad luck when things are going well, right? So I think they're going to find a way to figure things out and then maybe blow it at the end, but they never like totally stink. Chargers bad luck is not like Lions or Browns bad luck where nothing can go right. Chargers bad luck is they're going right and then something goes wrong. So I think they're going to figure out how to get something right. Again, things have to go right before they can really go terribly wrong.
Yeah, with the Chargers, you have to feel like something is being wasted.
Yeah.
The only thing is with Brandon Staley for me that gives me pause, because I agree with everything else, but with Brandon Staley, this is coming from the offseason. I listened to the Play Callers, the Jordan Rodriguez series at The Athletic. Phenomenal if you haven't listened to it. And they talk briefly about Brandon Staley kind of being the guy that Sean McVay brings in to try to fix like the Fangio problem and kind of get on the right side of that and say, well, this is the scheme that sort of figured us out. So let's bring him in, not only because that defense seems to be really successful right now, but because we want to go against it a whole bunch and try stuff and figure out how to beat it. And that was super successful in LA because they had Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. And I have yet to see Brandon Staley really put together a consistently successful defense that doesn't have specifically Aaron Donald on it. And I'm not even saying good pass rush. They got Khalil Mack over there, right? They got Joey Bosa. They got edge rushers. But can he do it without specifically Aaron Donald and the way that he wrecks games is still like a question. And I don't know if he has an answer to that. And I think that might lead to him not making it to the end of the season, but that also is not preclusive to a playoff appearance. We might see an interim head coach in the playoffs if it's, the chart. I mean, shoot, sneak into the 7th seed with interim whoever. Like I could see of anybody doing that. That is the exact kind of chaos I can expect out of the Chargers.
Interim head coach Kellen Moore would be a lot of fun, but I do think that's a really good point that, like, when I think about the Fangio defense, like having that elite 3 technique pass rusher is almost more important than having great edge rushers. Like, you need both, but like I think back to Fangio and Staley in Chicago with Akeem Hicks being really such a driving force of that group. And you kind of seen that across the board when Denver struggled with Fangio. They didn't really have, they had Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and they still couldn't get the defense going because they didn't have quite enough interior pass rush. So I think that's a very valid observation and concern. I do wonder though, does an interim head coach sneak the Chargers into the playoffs? And then of course, something's going to go horribly wrong in that first playoff game. And they're going to absolutely
look, Raiders did it. It's been done now. You fire Brandon Staley and the new guy comes in and the first thing he's going to say is Raiders did it. We can do this, guys. And they've got a lot of talent. But there's a comeback that needs to be made. So I'm going to be a huge homer and go with the Minnesota Vikings as a team that you can't count out yet. Will they make the playoffs? I think they'll be on the bubble, right? I think they can go back and get close. But there's a great piece by our mutual enemy, Arif Hassan, who has his Substack, Wide Left Substack. He wrote a piece about this and about like kind of this reason for optimism. And the key stat in it was EPA not including turnovers, which is kind of unfair, right? Turnovers happened and they're your fault. You got to eat them. And the argument was not the Vikings should have won those games, but the argument was moving forward, turnovers are not as predictive, right? And of all of the 0-2 teams in the past that have made the playoffs, including last year's Bengals, and I believe there was a Super Bowl team not long ago that did that. Of all of those teams, the ones that were successful were the ones that were like good in this stat. And the Vikings were third best in history in that. There is something for you, right? For all of the sustainability nonsense we had to put up with last year, we get to do it the other way around. But I think looking at it more practically than that and why they have lost, it is an inherently fixable problem. They have lost on turnovers, and those turnovers have been almost exclusively fumbles. That is a fixable thing. Hang on to the ball, work on ball security. That's something you can work on, you can emphasize, and get out of there. Work on it with the punt returner, work on it with everybody who touches the ball, the quarterback, the receivers, the running backs, everybody. Work on it with the linemen. I don't care. Nobody gets to drop a ball. You drop a ball, you do 25 push-ups. That's in any scenario, you do not get to drop a ball. And eventually that problem will kind of go away. Plus there's the actual like fumble luck. All of that feels like a team that is good, but has sabotaged itself. And a team that is good but has sabotaged itself is always the team that is absolutely, that is absolutely what the 2022 Bengals were. And so for following that formula, I feel like the Vikings can be the team that makes a turnaround.
It does feel to me like the Vikings are another team with some similar Chargers energy where, again,
they never God hates them. Yeah.
But the Vikings curse is never, oh, they're terrible. It's we think they might be good, and then they ultimately prove us wrong.
They've got to get your hopes up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they still have to get to the get your hopes up part. And this is with Kirk Cousins. Like, I know there's a team that's sort of like halfway between transitioning and rebuilding and also trying to win now. And they've kind of been in this weird sort of turning over the roster, but still trying to win now mode that makes this precarious. But Kirk Cousins is still like a fine quarterback who can win the football game. When you have Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, you're going to do a lot better than the 0-2 team that we've started, especially because it's not like their offensive line is absolutely horrendous. And I do think, it takes some time for this new defensive scheme to kind of really settle in with their players, even though I think there's some real talent deficiencies there. Like, they're going to be a much better team than they are right now, even if I don't believe in them making a deep playoff run or anything.
Vikings, Lions, week 16 and week 18 of this year.
Whew.
Call that a series for a win and in. And I think you probably can get because if those teams are within 2 games of each other, you can call that series like, okay, the division comes down to this. And unless the Packers decide they're going to be frisky about it or the Bears find some kind of turnaround, it feels like that's the division. It kind of has felt like that's the division, even going back to preseason. So I feel like everything else is just kind of getting yourself in position for that. Before we head out, we would like to give you a yike and a like of the week. Something we enjoyed, something that made us say, yike. So that's coming up next.
This episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy sports. PrizePicks is better because it puts you in complete control. You're not trying to go up against 10,000 lineups from 10,000 other people to try and be your lottery ticket chance of beating out everybody else and happening to have the perfect lineup. PrizePicks, you're just putting your wits against the projections right in the house. You pick up 2 to 6 players and whether they will do more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money just on your picks. We were talking about one Kirk Cousins, for example. This week it's 277 and a half passing yards. Will he do more or less? Or Justin Herbert, 295.5. Can he be a 300-yard passer this week? You combine those picks, you make your picks right, you're getting 25 times more money back. It's a lot more fun, gives you some stakes in these games that you might not otherwise care about. Maybe those boring Monday night games didn't do it for you. If you had some PrizePicks players in those games, all of a sudden you're tuned in and engaged. You got to check it out for yourself. Head on over to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's an extra $100 to play with for free at prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Moving right along with this Locked On NFL podcast episode here with Lorin Cox. I'm Luke Braun. Let's do Yike and Like of the week. Lorin, something that made you say yike, something that made you say I like that. Any order, we don't care. Do you have anything off of the top of your mind?
Yeah, normally I try really hard to not, just go to the Bears thing that I know, right? But I think there was a yike in the Bears game.
This is a place to do it, we got a Bears representative on the national show. Talk your talk.
Well, I just think there was a yike in the Bears game that was going viral around Bears Twitter, but I don't know that it made it to the rest of the NFL. But in the fourth quarter against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bears are down 7 or 6. It's down to one possession game. Justin Fields has the ball, like back up his own 10-yard line or so is where they're starting that drive. Bears come out. They call a screen pass to the running back. One of the defensive ends jumps the snap count too early, gets after Fields. He just has to throw it away. Plays called offside, just called back, whatever. Bears come out for play number 2. Another running back screen. This one, they get it to the running back. He catches it and runs, but there's a flag because Chase Claypool thought it was a running play and was run blocking down the field. So they get backed up to like their own 5-yard. Third play now. Same screen play, 3 plays in a row. Same formation. The second one they rotated, they did a pre-snap motion, but otherwise, same formation, same screen play. This one's picked off pick 6 because the defense and Levante David said afterwards, it was the same formation. It was the same play call, 3 plays in a row. we knew what they were calling. Like we knew what the play was going to be, and it was the game deciding interception. And so it's just a big yikes of like guy playing Madden and really trying to make sure this is the right play call. Oh, it's going to work. If I just call it, it's going to work one of these times. And just absolutely disastrous there. And of course, it goes down to the pick six on Fields' stat sheet when he's just trying to throw a screen pass and an edge rusher makes a one-handed catch. I mean, there's only so much he can do at that point when the same play call comes in 3 times in a row.
And that's crazy. And that is not something that was just noticed by observers. That has been discussed in the media by the Bears. Yeah.
The offensive coordinator himself hasn't specifically addressed that yet, but I'm expecting we're going to hear from him this week.
I thought we had an Eberflus quote. Am I wrong?
There was sort of like there was some spacing and timing issues, but we didn't get a very definitive answer. It was like, yeah, the timing's got to be better on that play, is what he said. But he didn't get really about calling it 3 times in a row. It was just like you've been calling a lot of screens kind of conversation.
Well, I'll get my yike out of the way as well. It comes from the Monday Night Football game that you and I just finished watching between the Steelers and Browns. There were a lot of yikes, like yikes-worthy things in that game. Of course, Nick Chubb going down with a horrific knee injury. That is terrible, terrible news. Considering that it was the same knee that he injured in college and it looked really, really gnarly. Looks like there's going to be a lot of structural damage. I hope that we get an MRI with good news and it's actually just a sprain and we got lucky or something like that. But I'm not holding my breath. But my yike actually goes later in that game. The Browns are down 4 points after giving up their second defensive touchdown of the day. It is 4th down and 7. And Deshaun Watson escapes and throws a pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones that is totally uncatchable. To borrow a phrase from JT O'Sullivan, is a never in history ball. That thing is closer to a cheerleader. And the broadcast goes absolutely nuts because there's a jersey tug by Joey Porter Jr. who's in coverage on Donovan Peoples-Jones saying that should have been PI. That should have been PI. If that is not an uncatchable pass, which I believe is where that call is going to be, or the refs just missed it, either way. But if we can't all agree that that one was uncatchable, I mean, that thing was going to hit the Gatorade cooler, then we just got to get rid of the uncatchable part of PI. And also, Deshaun Watson, put that thing in play, dude. You're making like $70 million a year or whatever it is now that they restructured. Dude, put the ball in bounds. Yike.
There was a lot of yike in that game, but yeah, it doesn't get much uglier than that. Especially, it's always the second one of the Monday night games that tends to be the ugly one.
A little later at night. It's East Coast teams too, so it's like extra late for them.
Yeah, 2 ugly football teams right now too. That's for sure.
I'm gonna do a like as well that our good buddy David Harrison is gonna love. How about Sam Howell, man? He has come out so strong. 2-0 Washington Commanders going up against the Denver Broncos defense, almost 300 yards, 299, a couple of scores. But here's what I really like about it. 9 different Washington Commanders got more than 1 reception, and 10 different Commanders players got a reception. Everybody 2 or 3 receptions. The ball spread around. Lots of different options. That means you're going through your progressions. You're finding what's open. You're not just honing in on one guy. That is a healthy offense. And that can take you places even when you're not supposed to go places. And that feels like what the Commanders are trying to prove that they can do.
It has been against the Cardinals and the Broncos, who may be no good, but I love celebrating it while we can, because we know with young quarterbacks like that.
Yeah, and it's strength of competition be damned. It's just a functional thing that you can, hey, I can get the ball to a bunch of different guys. Like, look, this works. And we'll see what happens when it, gets stiffer opposition. But look, here it is, proof of concept. This thing can happen.
Yeah, my problem is that I've been burned by a young North Carolina quarterback coming in and looking good for a couple games against bad teams. Like I've seen that one before, but really,
look at Jordan Love just wreck those Bears. Everything will surely be great.
I'm certainly rooting for Sam Howell and want him to be successful. I don't mean to poo-poo on his success there. Just some battle scars there.
Good moment for him as a 5th-round, second-year player too. Go in, operate a functional offense. Now let's put a defense on him and see what happens.
Absolutely. I'll throw in one quick like for me. I do like to make sure that we celebrate when players do really well. And I'll say TJ Watt setting the franchise record.
Yeah.
In 89 games, he's had 81.5 sacks. I mean, That's crazy.
Nuts.
And plus, he had his first career touchdown. I saw that he and Alex Highsmith have as many touchdowns as the Steelers offense this season, which is a little bit of a yike, but also a nice like for TJ Watt. And I'll say, like, on a personal,
Matt Canada.
I knew TJ Watt in college a little bit and interviewed him a number of times, and like he's a good person in addition to a really, really good football player. And so he's easy to root for, and I'm very happy for his success.
Very easy to root for the Steelers on Monday night for a number of reasons. Thank y'all so much for listening to Locked On NFL. Tomorrow you get Tony and James getting up to whatever they always get up to. For Lauren Cox, I am Luke Braun. Thank you all again for listening to the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.